appears that a cruise ship captain and crew may have accidentally sailed into millions of dollars worth of damage. So less than 24 hours ago, we had a cruise ship that had just completed a 10-day beautiful Alaskan cruise, returning back to their home port over in California. Upon arriving and docking over in the port, they made a little bit of a boo-boo and crashed into the pier, damaging the ship, the hull of it, which is going to be a very costly repair, the pier itself, and well, unfortunately, maybe their reputation. Now, of course, we are going to go over the details available so far in the little giblets, as this cruise ship, even though it is damaged, the cruise line, believe it or not, is still trying to sail with passengers on board right now. I'll leave it up to you if you think that is right or wrong. We'll go over the details, and I am unhappy to let all of you know that the video I put up yesterday for educational purposes has been dubbed demonetized and shadow banned to the shadow realm by YouTube. They don't like it. This is why I'm careful about putting up these videos. Not only does YouTube demonetize the video, so the work I put in, I don't make money off of it. YouTube also downrates my channel, so I don't get the views that, well, maybe this is an arguable topic that I do or don't deserve, and it's just not a good thing. So I'm gonna chill on those kind of videos for a while. But let's go ahead and get into this main topic. Yesterday, on July 6th at approximately 6 a.m., we had the, what many would call, infamous Ruby Princess cruise ship. I'll explain why later on in the video. This ship was redocking at its home port after a 10-day sailing over to Alaska over at Pier 27 in San Francisco. Upon arrival back through to an unknown or unconfirmed rather reason, this ship ended up crashing into Pier 27, and according to eyewitnesses, well, it was definitely something to see and feel.
I noticed we were spinning pretty quick to be that close to the dock, and I was midship, port side, looked out the window, and we smacked into the dock.
The damage to the hull of the Ruby Princess and dock at Pier 27 easy to see. More than 3,300 guests and nearly 1,200 crew members just completed a 10-day round-trip cruise to Alaska that departed San Francisco on June 26th.
Now, the Ruby Princess, as far as the age, is a little seasoned, 15 years old, so it's not a old ship, but it's not a spring chicken either. 15-year-old cruise ship built in the year 2008, holds 3,500 passengers. Now, as far as navigating the ship, I would imagine, regardless of the age, unless weather is a factor, which is a very real possibility. I have a story I'll tell you guys about in a second here. I am curious as to how something like this could happen. And what makes this even crazier, allegedly, according to one of the passengers on board, they said this situation is ironic because I believe a day ago or so, the captain of the Ruby Princess was joking around saying that they were going to crash into the pier or something of that nature, or joking about it due to the weather conditions. Either way, I guess now, as they say, hindsight is 2020. There's just some things you just don't joke about. History has shown that whether it be in aviation or aquatics, marine life, you just don't make those jokes, because then when something happens and people remember it, well, it don't look too good. Also, to be clear, when I mention weather conditions, I am also talking about currents too. It's technically not weather, but this does have a sway on the navigation systems when it comes to cruise ships and humans, and even when I go scuba diving, we have to understand where the currents are, because they can, of course, unfortunately prove to be deadly or damaging if you are not careful, like maybe potentially this is what happened with the situation with the Ruby Princess. So I apologize for that. There's the correction for you. Now, back when I worked for Norwegian Cruise Line, just to give you guys an example, we had a captain. His name was Giovanni, which from my understanding, he has since been, well, let go from Norwegian. If you look up the Norwegian escape running aground, end up crashing into the ground last year over in Dominican Republic. It was a very big fiasco over in 2022. The problem is with Giovanni, unless there happens to be multiple Giovannis within the Norwegian fleet, which it's a possibility. I don't know. They're all Italian, aren't they? A lot of the captains oftentimes. Anyway, whenever I worked for Norwegian Escape, we used to have a port, Costa Maya, Mexico. Costa Maya, Mexico, if you don't know, oftentimes because of the weather conditions and currents, can be a very difficult port to dock in for a lot of cruise ships and vessels. Whenever we had that port of call on our itinerary, whenever I worked for Norwegian, Giovanni usually canceled it. We always knew without fail he was going to say there was inclement weather in the area. However, we'd wake up the next morning and it'd be a bright and sunshiny day. We'd always joke and say Giovanni just doesn't know how to steer the boat, the vessel, and Well, I guess the joke has had a little bit of truth behind it because we now know, seeing how he's now been let go with Norwegian. Anyway, getting back to this story with Ruby Princess, there is a conundrum now, a controversy taking place on whether this cruise ship should continue to sail. What's happened is yesterday around 11 a.m., the Ruby Princess still started to board its passengers because typically, whenever it comes to a cruise ship, whenever they redock and return back to their home port, they offload the passengers and they bring in a brand new batch to go ahead and sail off into the sunset once again that same day. They want to set sail, however, they are doing an analysis and just kind of observing the damage and also waiting for clearance by the Coast Guard and the local authorities over in those ports to see if they can get the green light to once again sail. On one end, a lot of people are saying, well, it just looks like a cruise ship fender bender, if you will, and it shouldn't be a big deal. Let them go ahead and sail. Or others are saying, well, you don't know. This is the hull, and this is literally the bottom of the ship. You don't know, let's say, I hate the references because it has nothing to do with like the Titanic, but you look at that or like a Costa Concordia situation, any damage to the hull or the bottom of the vessel can look like it's seemingly nothing, and then next thing you know, it starts flooding in parts of the ship, and now you have a potential tragedy that is taking place, and that's not something that you want to see. Not saying that would happen with the Ruby Princess. What I'm saying is, I understand people on the other side of the fence and saying that this should be completely analyzed, make sure there is absolutely no chance that this could worsen because it might look like a small hole or a couple scratches on the hull or bottom end of the ship. And I think many of you would agree with me, under the guise of safety, if you don't look at every single nook and cranny, every single possible scenario, every scratch, every little thing, and don't just try to put some Elmer's glue over it or JB Weld. I used to put it on my car engines all the time. My friends and I, we used to race around with little Hondas, and we just had JB Weld for everything. It was a solution. There's a hose that had a little leak in it. Well, let's put some JB Weld on it and deal with it later. I would believe when it comes to things like maritime on a cruise ship or aviation, you need to really take a deep, very detailed dive and make sure everything is actually as they say that it is. If they believe that it's safe and there's a green light, make sure it actually is that and nobody's rushing it for the sake of making a little bit of profit. Putting dollars or profits before lives is obviously a big no-no. It should be frowned upon. It should be shamed. And any company that does this, especially I would argue in the massive people moving space, whether it be in the maritime sector or aviation sector, or if you try to cut costs, we've seen recently, I hate to bring it up, but there was, they said, Merciful, and the CEO decided that he wanted to cut costs, and well, we saw what ended up happening. Very unfortunate situation. I don't think that should be an issue. That shouldn't even be a thought from the beginning. If you decide to do this as anybody that is an authority figure or a decision maker in these spaces, well, you deserve to be banned to the shadow realm. You walk the plank and, of course, fired or even, sued, whatever the case may be. But nevertheless, when it also comes to this Ruby Princess situation, I am convinced at this point to some degree that this ship has a little bit of bad juju sprinkled all over it. Many of you remember the COVID-19 pandemic. Well, it was not Princess's fault in my personal opinion. However, Princess was inevitably the catalyst in which the media caught eye with the start of the Diamond Princess, and then of course the Ruby Princess. This ship in question here had a situation over in Australia, and a lot of people started calling the cruise ship industry as a whole a petri dish, and a big reason why COVID is spreading worldwide. This is obviously, looking at it now, is the dumbest thing you've probably ever heard. Cruising is not solely responsible for spreading COVID. I don't think they're responsible at all, to be honest with you. But either way, my point is, there's just a lot of bad stuff going on with Princess, and it sucks because it's only been a year of, I want to say, freedom or like a COVID-less world that we've been kind of living in. I wouldn't say COVID-less, but you know what I mean, right? Till things sort of got back to normal, and now, of course, you have this situation in San Francisco, which Princess also had a situation during the pandemic over there as well. A really crappy situation. Hopefully they can get out of this, and hopefully there is a reason as to why all of this happened, legitimate reason, and well, they'll fix and make their repairs, and they'll just keep on moving. But that's what I got for this video. Of course, guys, let me know your thoughts on this in the comment section below. Hit that like button on your way out. Let me know your thoughts, and well, I'll see all of you later. Take it easy.